Hello everyone, welcome back to the Stellium Astrology podcast. I'm Stephanie James, your host, and today I am following on from the episode that I recorded last week. I've got my little boy, he's in the back of the car snoring, you might hear. A friend of mine said it's very calming and therapeutic to hear him snoring his little head off. So today I wanted to talk to you guys just a little bit about a book I've been listening to recently, which is Eckhart Tolle, I think is how you say it, Eckhart Tolle, and the book is called A New Earth. And I haven't listened to all of it. I'm sort of a bit of the way through, but one of the things I think that's really interesting to me is the concept of ego and how Eckhart describes it, because he talks about the ego as being a sense of identifying with something that makes us cling to reality in some way. It's almost like to remove items from somebody. So like say like a handbag, for example. I'm a sucker for a handbag. I can't help it. I've always been this way. I just love bags. And I don't know if it's like the potential of what you can store in them, or I don't know what, but maybe it's because I've got a Mercury-Venus conjunction and Venus just is ruler of Taurus and Taurus likes to collect. I love to have little like toiletry bags full of things that I put in my handbag, and it doesn't have to be like shampoo and conditioner. I'm talking like a little toiletries bag that I put my phone chargers in and any of my electrical equipment stuff. And then I've got another little toiletries bag that I've got like my hand cream and my cuticle oil and my lipstick and whatever. And I'm not really a girly girl, but it makes it sound like I am. And then I've got like a little zip pocket thing that I like to keep my Kindle in, and I like to keep everything organised and tidy. And you know, it's like something that makes me feel happy and safe and secure. And I think that it's interesting because I do this and I have things a way that I like it. It just gives me a sense of calm to have this kind of order. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat. And I think that when I was listening to Eckhart and he was talking about us identifying with something, so say instead of a bag, let's say like a sentimental object, like I've got a ring that my mum gave me. Now, one of the things that I've noticed through this Pluto transit that I'm having to my Mercury, which is at 2 Aquarius, is that I have started undergoing a major decluttering process. I have started getting rid of a lot of things, and I've got to a point where I've got rid of so much of my stuff. I'm at a point where I don't know what else I can get rid of without really getting rid of stuff that is part of how I identify myself. And this is where I find it interesting. It's like my ego, my sun in Capricorn, the sun in the chart is the ego. My ego is identifying with astrology books, with my Reiki massage couch. I haven't been able to get rid of my hairdressing equipment, which is, I haven't really, the only people's hair that I do now. I still cut men's hair, but only a few people that I know. I don't really do women's hair that much at all. I never get asked to do it. I just don't advertise that I do it. So I'm still hanging on to that. And then I've got all my computery bits. It's mostly books and mostly like my stuff for me to be able to do my work. So like Capricorn, I guess. Capricorn and Gemini rising. My friend Marina, she said, "You're the goat trying to pull a library up a mountain." I'm like, "Yep, that's me." So basically, Marina from Dark Star Astrology, by the way, if you haven't checked her out, I'm very good friends with Marina and we talk regularly, and she's fab. She's fab. I love Marina to bits. It's nice to have an astrology friend who I get to talk to on a regular. But yeah, so what Eckhart Tolle was saying was that the ego exists, but actually the ego is a lot about what we think. So actually the ego, what I'm noticing is that when I had Pluto to my sun, yes, it stripped away parts of myself that I thought, it kind of destroyed part of who I am in a strange sense, because I was uprooted and I relocated 3 times in 1 year. I broke up with my ex-boyfriend. I moved back to my parents. Then I moved to Hackney in East London. And then from East London, I went up to Northampton, all in the space of a year. It all just was a very interesting process, and it happened very quickly in 2017. So in 2017, the year began and I was living in Croydon and in South London. And then I moved to Norwood in South London, then to Hackney Wick, and then up to Northampton, all in the space of a year. It's just baffling to think of it, really. And every single time I moved, I had to get rid of stuff. So things went. My stuff just went. So I got rid of loads of books. I mean, I've got a lot of books now, but I had so many books. It was insane, the amount of books I had. And lots of bits and bobs of all my life's knickknacks that I'd built up over the years. That would all come with me, and then I'd move to another place, and then I'd take a few bits with me, but I'd lose a bit more. And when I came up to Northampton, loads of stuff had to go into storage. So I had a few boxes that went into storage, and I was living in a tiny little room in Northampton. So I just had to scale back again, and stuff got put on the back burner for a while, and I readjusted to my new environment. And it was all I was very much a fish out of water. I was very much, I think it happened at the same time I had my Pluto transit, and then Saturn entered Capricorn. So as soon as Saturn entered Capricorn, I'd moved up here, and I was very isolated. And so for the time that I was up here, the first couple of years, I just threw myself into astrology work, and I ended up getting Elle magazine horoscopes and all of that kind of thing. But at the same time, I didn't have any kind of social life. I didn't know anybody other than the people that I worked with in my square job, working for the National Health Service. And it just was a very isolating time where I really had... I got into being me and to doing what I want to do and what I love, basically. I threw myself into astrology. And, we've got little man waking up now. That's okay. I'll stop touching your head. You clearly don't like it. And, so that all occurred, and it was almost like I was being shown... My sun was being... When I say illuminated, because it can't be illuminated by Pluto, but Pluto came in and took me to a place that I always swore I'd never come to. I never had great dreams of coming to Northampton. I'd heard about the place, and I thought it sounded drab AF. Like, I was like, this place sounds dry, man. Like, I don't ever want to come to Northampton. I'd been to Milton Keynes, which is a bit further south. I think I went to Wolverton to a rock club once. My ex-boyfriend had a gig there with Nick Oliveri from the Queens of the Stone Age. I told you he had a bit of a career in America, his music career and stuff. But I came to Wolverton and I was like, this place is dry. Milton Keynes is dry. Northampton is dry. The Midlands are dry. And then I'm now here, and it's like 7 years later, and suddenly I'm like, Pluto's far enough away from my sun, and the Persephone myth is very much playing out, where I think I came here, I hated it, I didn't really want to be here. I felt like I was constantly trying to escape, and I did everything I could to reach out and meet people, and I struggled. I finally met people through having a baby, and I've got a group of really great people now, and that made it feel a little bit more like home to me. But what's really interesting is that I've suddenly had a shift in my consciousness, and I'm like, I like it here, actually. It's nice. It's really nice. So there's been a massive shift, and it's almost like that Persephone myth of she got abducted and dragged into the underworld, and she, was raped, and then she got Stockholm syndrome. and decided, actually, you know what, I quite like it here, and decided I'm going to stay for 6 months of the year, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to see my mum for another 6 months of the year, and this is where we get our seasons from. But the Persephone myth feels extremely relatable to me, having come up to Northampton, and the way that I felt about being here. It's like I spent so much energy feeling negative about this place, and then when I stopped fighting it and just accepted it, I was like, it's nice. You know, I've let go of that battle. But now Pluto's coming to my Mercury. It's understanding that maybe having Pluto to your sun isn't as transformational as it is when it comes to your Mercury. And maybe I'm saying this as a Gemini rising, but what I've always said to you guys in previous episodes is that Mercury is the sun's PA, and there's literally no shred of information that can get back to the sun unless it's gone through Mercury. Our brain is our operating system. We cannot process information until it goes through the brain. You know, we can't. So our brain is an intrinsic part of the programming of being a human being. And to experience life, you know, I suppose maybe meditation is where we might be able to switch off from allowing the brain to do its thing and go to a higher plane. But how much of that is just accessing another part of the brain rather than switching off? You know, it's difficult. It's too ambiguous for me to try and claim anything wild like that. What I can say is that from my experience of this transit so far, and from listening to that New Earth book by Eckhart Tolle, what is of interest to me is the fact that he's talking about how we think. The ego is our thoughts about who we are, what we think, how we process everything around us, and how we identify with certain things. And that actually, when I think about the sun and what happened to me during that transit, I felt empowered. I suddenly realised I was able and capable of doing things, which again was me thinking and a shift in my thought process. However, I don't think that having Pluto to my sun was as big an internalised shift as having Pluto to my Mercury. I think that there is a sense of, I suppose, the ego. It's like, what do they say? They say, you know, we are constantly feeling our emotional state. We're constantly experiencing hormonal fluctuations in our mood, in our energy levels. All of that is constantly going on. Our thought process attached to that. So something happens, you walk down the road, somebody bumps into you and doesn't even acknowledge that they've done it. And you turn around and you look at them and you get annoyed. You feel a prick in your sort of like your anger, your aggression, your irritation, that kind of, oh, what is that person's problem? That feeling is in control of us. That feeling is the thing that suddenly takes over, more than logic. But when the logic kicks in, you've either got it powered by the thought process, by the emotion, or you're able to balance it out with a kind of rationale. So you could go, oh, whatever, it's not worth it. Or you could just go, what's your problem? Because you've just been prompted by this sudden surge. But actually, what they say about emotions is that it's energy in motion. And I guess what I'm trying to say, really, is that there's a sense that when it comes to our thought process, thinking is key when it comes to everything we do in life, because everything we do starts with a thought. It comes from a place where we have to decide we're doing something. And you could sit there and you could think and think and think about things all you like, and not really take action. You could be one of those people. But ultimately, the action comes when you've finalised your thought process. So it's just my I guess I'm just spitballing again. But ultimately, I'm just kind of trying to convey that this Pluto to my Mercury, and Pluto to Mercury in general, has got me thinking about, in a deep, deep way, about the ego, and about how the ego is maybe the entire chart, your entire chart, and different aspects of it are, triggered by certain transits. The sun in psychological astrology is the ego. And Freud has a lot to say about that. Jung has a lot to say about that. Richard Swatton has a lot to say about that. Lots of episodes coming up with him because I love talking to Richard. But, the ego the sun can't operate without Mercury. Nothing. It's almost as though, I could be bold enough to say that actually Mercury is the most important thing in the chart almost. And there's a sense of like, we don't really know our sun. We grow into our sun. We know our moon. We are our moon. We're coming from it. It might be subconscious or unconscious to us in some ways because it's a very, I guess it's not overt. It's not extrovert. It's very much our introverted nature, our hidden, most private aspects of ourselves. But with the sun, we grow towards it. Our life is another experience on top of another experience on top of another experience. It's almost like building a massive pile of Jenga blocks, and every Jenga block is one step closer to our sun. Every single time we're building up and up and up, and then when you get there you go, oh my gosh, this is who it is, this is me, this is who I am. So the sun is almost an unconscious force in some ways, particularly if you've got a 12th house sun, if you're a Pisces, maybe Sun Neptune. There's something intangible, you can't quite grasp it. And for me, I'm a Capricorn. My sun, spend years and years wondering what on earth I don't relate to being a Capricorn. And it becomes more obvious the older you get. So I think that everybody can relate to that in some way or another. However, our Mercury sign is it's about the way we think, it's about the way we digest information, it's about the way we communicate, it's about the way we process the world around us. It's literally our processing, our operating system. So when we have a major transit, and Pluto's just my example, and about the breaking down of ego and about letting go. But there's obviously other major transits you can have and not so major. Saturn is a big one, but it's only it's not as like a slow a process as the outer planets. It's a much shorter transit, but it's hard going. It's really hard going. And yes, I had Saturn to my Mercury in the early pandemic. Oh man, that was hard. They're all difficult transits. They're all challenging. They all force us to become a bit more of what we were meant to be. I feel like the birth chart, it's almost like you could print it and put it down on a record player, put a needle on it, and it would be like a little vinyl playing our life story. And you'd start from the outside and wind up on... Well, how does it work with a vinyl? You put it on the outside and it ends up in the middle, doesn't it? Yeah. It's just how it feels to me. It's almost like we are just a piece of music that's playing, and every little experience we have just adds to the song. It adds to our soundtrack. And by the time we get to the end, it's a masterpiece and we've heard the whole thing and it totally makes sense. And if you were to listen to it, life makes sense backwards, So it's just one of those annoying things with astrology as well. It's like you can see how things are unfolding. You can make these ideas, these predictions, and wonder how they're going. But when you look at life backwards and you work backwards and figure out all your transits and what happened previously, it all really makes sense. So it's just kind of a great big mystery that we're kind of moving towards. And when we get there, we find out who we are. I think that that's the beauty of this unfolding process. It's just tough being in the throes of it and kind of feeling like, it's a big mystery. So, yeah, I've gone on waffling again, but, I think my thing that when I was listening to that New Earth and he was talking about ego, it just fascinated me that it sounded mercurial. So I thought, I'd share my thoughts with you yet again, and I hope you enjoyed them. And if you're enjoying the podcast on whichever platform you're listening, if you can leave a review, I would massively appreciate it. It's always lovely to see that people are enjoying what I do, and I do get people contact me and say thank you and that they appreciate what I'm doing. So it takes me a while sometimes to get back to people, but I always appreciate people getting in touch. And I've got a Patreon page, and we're starting to get closer and closer, and it's just like a wonderful little community of people who are really open to sharing and learning about themselves. And we have been holding I've held my first session not long ago where Richard Swatton came and analysed some people's charts and dreams, and that's going to be going out as an episode. And I'm thinking about holding regular sessions for my patrons where we can get together and have a little chat. And it's just perfect timing with Pluto in Aquarius and finding our little communities. So hopefully you'll come over to Patreon and check out the page and see what you think, because you can follow for free. I also have a Substack actually, and you can follow Substack for free as well. I kind of use it for my newsletters, so I'll put some links down so you can come and find me. It would be great to connect with you. Don't hesitate if you want to get in touch. I'm always happy to say hi. And hopefully I'll be with you guys soon with another episode. Thanks a lot. Take care.